Welcome to the Investor Coaching Show, a podcast to help you get an insider's view of the financial world and escape common investment traps. We look at the financial news of the day and help you make sense of it so you can relax about money.
Wow, that's some kicking music for Financial Literacy Month. That'll get you going, man. It's so pretty that great weather outside that we've got to do everything we can to keep our listeners engaged, make this exciting. Hey, you were talking during the break that you had checked out Nutella's social media page. What were you saying?
Oh, they're just capitalizing on that live stream with the jar that was like floating through the space capsule.
Yeah.
So Nutella says they are proud to go where no spread has gone before.
Oh gosh. The memes just right. That's one of the things I love about America, and some other countries maybe can do it, but our sense of humor is just really unmatched around the world, whether it's memes, whether it's political cartoons, or whatever.
Well, see, if you go to the comment section,
Yeah.
It gets even better because all these other corporations are now commenting on the fact that Nutella got like the product placement of a lifetime.
Oh, yeah.
And my personal favorite real fast comes from Red Bull. They said, Red Bull gives you wings, but Nutella takes you to space, apparently.
Oh, wow. A little cross-branding. So, that's fun. If you haven't seen the video, frankly, I'd go check out their page. It's pretty exciting. So a little bit later on, actually, we'll start this segment, and I'll probably go to like 35 after, just on this one, just to let you know, RJ. But, we talk about creating freedom, fulfillment, and love in families is one of the purposes that we have for our clients. And yes, we talk about love. I mean, ultimately, money is a tool. It isn't everything. It certainly makes things more enjoyable, takes stress out of your life, and sometimes money adds stress to your life. So I had some conversations with clients over the last couple weeks, and they centered around gifting. And so it's fortuitous that at the end of Dr. Friday's show, somebody was asking about gifting. So hopefully you're still listening, but if not, those of you that are listening, we're going to talk about some of the finances involved in helping the next generation deal with a lot of these headwinds that you hear about in the media, whether they can't afford a house, it's hard to find a job, and those kind of things. And more parents are having conversations either with us or with each other, maybe with their pastor, to say, hey, how can we help out? And so, one of the simplest things you can do is just make an annual gift to a child, or frankly, anybody, but I'll just use children as an example. And you could give $19,000 per year to each child. And if you're married, your spouse could give another $19,000 per year to each of those children. And there is no paperwork involved whatsoever. It is just like giving them socks or fruitcake for Christmas. You don't file any kind of tax return to, give your kid, a Daisy BB gun or a red wagon or whatever. And you could give them $19,000, and it is exactly the same in the eyes of the IRS. It is just an exempt gift. You don't have to report it. They don't have to declare it as income, nothing. The one caveat I would give is if you are gifting with your spouse, this is personal preference, I would write 2 different checks, and I would just keep copies of those checks in the radically unlikely event that the IRS, years after you've done this and you've passed away, says, hey, did you split that gift to your kids 20 years ago or something like that. But other than just saving a copy of the check for your records, I wouldn't sweat it. So what happens if you want to gift more than $19,000? And she touched on it, but I'm going to go into a little bit more detail, again, because I've been dealing with clients with this. We don't prepare 709s is the tax return. Form 709 is the gift and generation skipping transfer tax return. And so, those limits have gotten pretty high way back when I started doing this stuff. And some of you listening probably remember these numbers as well. You could gift your lifetime exemption was $600,000 per person. And frankly, at the time in 1991, I thought that was a princely sum, a king's ransom, something like that. And then it finally went up to $1 million and all that. But it kind of hung out there for a long time. And all of a sudden, it's ratcheted up to where this year it's $15 million. And if you're married, that means if you structure things properly, you could gift, or, whether you passed away or just give it in your lifetime, you could give your kids $30 million and still not pay any tax. You just have to fill out the correct paperwork. And what's that paperwork doing? It's keeping track of the tax on that $50 million that they say you would be paying if you ever give over $30 million or $15 million if you're an individual again. And so the credit now is about $5.5 million. I think it's $5,451,000. It's a squirrely number, but it's a little over $5 million. And so that would be the tax on leaving somebody $15 million. And so you just start calculating what's my tax each year, and you keep track of it. You file your gift tax return. And if all of a sudden you die with a worth of $10 million and you've given away $30 million and you have $10 million left, then the first dollar that comes out of your estate is going to be taxed at 40%. So it's just a mechanism for keeping track of that tax. But if you do need to help out a child with a home purchase, with getting rid of a student loan or student loans, giving them a car, none of this has age limits. Used to, we had to worry about generation skipping, like if you were giving to grandchildren versus a child. There used to be some different calculations between those two generations. It's been integrated now. It's much simpler. Still a squirrely return, but it's a lot simpler than it used to be. But there's ways to make some significant help, give some significant help to your children or niece, nephew, whoever, without incurring any tax on your part or on the recipient's part. So once you give them that money, what are they going to do with it? And how should I give it to them? Meaning, what kind of an account, if they're not using it to buy a house or something like that, what kind of an account should I be using to get the most tax advantageous growth on that money? Well, we're going to have some comparisons. We'll start now and then we'll pick up after the break, but we're going to be talking about uniform transfer to minors accounts. Obviously, that applies if you're gifting it to a minor, whether that's grandchild, child, you're setting them up for a savings. We're going to talk some about 529s, and then we are also going to talk about the Trump accounts. There's some interesting news going on in the Trump account world. Kind of caught me off guard. There was an announcement this week. We'll talk about that. But, you want to have a game plan before you start writing these checks and even deciding what asset to gift to affect this help. You want to do some planning. You don't want to just, do this by the seat of your pants.
Hey, just a note to you podcast folks, we just came out with a retirement income guide, and I'm super excited about this. There are all kinds of myths about taking income in retirement. People worry about running out of money, and rightfully so, because a lot of these myths can actually cause that. Now, the myths that you typically hear about, number one, dividends, living off dividends in retirement, real estate, life insurance as a retirement investment, and annuities, and interest-bearing accounts, and target date funds, there are all kinds of things out there. What I want to do is put something together that walks through why those things are problematic, number one. Number two, the other thing that I wanted to do is walk through the evidence-based research on taking income in retirement. And we got a ton of data going all the way back to 1900. Hey, what's the logic behind it? And it's intensely logical. So we put that together, and all you have to do to download that, making it super simple, just go to paulwinkler.com/relax, and you can actually get into that very easily right there. So I would urge you to do that. Check it out, because I think you're going to really like it. paulwinkler.com/relax.
Welcome back to the Investor Coaching Show. I'm Evan Barnard, filling in for Paul Winkler. Man, I wish I could play like that. I could listen to that stuff all afternoon. So, hey, we're talking about helping out the next generation, and it is Financial Literacy Month as well. And so we're going to get into a little bit of nitty-gritty here. In having conversation with clients over the last few years, we've had a lot more conversations about what I call a launch fund, as opposed to just talking about saving for college. For any number of reasons, whether it's the job market, whether it's the cost of tuition. I don't want to send off a capitalist and get back a communist if they go to college, a bad college. But a growing number of clients aren't really that interested in sending their child to be indoctrinated at a university. Some are, and there's some professions that you just need to do that. You're not going to go to online med school and become a neurosurgeon. Engineering. There are professions where you need a college degree, and those degrees generally are very valuable and worth the cost. But increasingly, we talk about just creating this bucket of money that is used to help launch your child. Whether it could be used for school or education, could be used for trade school, it could be used for just buying tools to set them up in their own business, or helping them buy inventory to set up in their own business or something like that. And so anytime you start to talk about saving for a longer period of time, taxes come into the equation. If you're only going to be gifting, and if I use these terms only, please don't hear a value component to that. It just means I'm making a smaller gift. Doesn't mean you can't afford more or whatever. But, if you're only giving $5,000 or $10,000 over some period of time, maybe even 15, a gift to minors account, particularly if it's a minor, is to me one of the best ways to go. May not always be the best way, but when the minor owns that account, and it's in a thing called an UTMA, UTMA, and that stands for Uniform Transfer to Minors account. Once it's in that account, it is the minor's money, but it has a custodian, typically a parent. Sometimes it's a grandparent. And that money, as soon as it's in that account, has to be used for the child's benefit. And if it's still sitting there when they turn 21, then it becomes their money, with a couple of exceptions if there's disability and some things like that involved. But it just becomes their money. So a lot of times you don't want to dump $100,000 into a gift to minors account, UTMA, because you're not really sure what this 5 or 6 year old's going to be doing when they're 21. But if you have $10,000, $15,000 in this account, the first $1,350 of investment income are tax-free because it's covered by the child's standard deduction. The next $1,350 of investment income are taxed at the child's rate, which is, 10% probably, if that. So it's pretty small, and really, to me, it's almost tax-free to the child until you have investment income of $2,700. Once you have investment income over that amount, that doesn't mean they're cutting lawns, doesn't mean they have, a W-2 from working at Kroger's or something like that. It means investment income, dividends, capital gains, interest, that kind of stuff. All of a sudden, the extra earnings are taxed at the parent's rate, and those tax returns get integrated. But if it's a smaller balance, to me, an UTMA gives you a ton of flexibility, and you're not missing out on like the tax-free growth for a 529 plan or something like that. So smaller gift, I think that works great. And then in terms of putting the money into that account, certainly you could write a check or, transfer money from your bank account or something. If you happen to be sitting on some appreciated stock or appreciated mutual funds, yes, you can use mutual funds for gifts that are appreciated just like you can stocks, whether it's to church or kids or whatever. But you may have a gain, and if you gift it to the child and the gain's only $1,000 and they sell the stock, they sell that for tax-free. There's no capital gains tax because they only had $1,000 of investment income. So there's a little bit of an opportunity to do some income shifting as well. So what if you do want to start putting significantly more dollars into that account? It can still be appropriate. It's still flexible. It's still great as a launch fund, to stick with that term. But it does mean there's going to be some tax implications, and you might end up, be paying ordinary income tax at the parent's rate, which may be 22, 24%. But that's just the trade-off for having that flexibility. So how about 529s? What do we want to do with the 529 plan, and when does it, in my view, kind of become more appropriate over the UTMA? Well, for one thing, if you know the child is headed to college, or at least higher education, I shouldn't just narrow it to college. They could use it for trade school and some of that kind of stuff. But if they're headed for college, then you can dump a significant amount, $200,000 if you have the means to do that, into these accounts. And they do grow tax-free as long as it's used for college. Now, unless they're going to go to med school or law school or something like that, they may not need $200,000 in a 529. But with some of these rule changes that we've had, we have clients now that are rolling over their excess 529 balances into a Roth IRA for the child, as long as they have earned income, those kind of things. But there are absolutely tax benefits for a 529 plan. You do want to get a plan at a good state that's low expense, has good investment choices, and so forth. But it is very flexible. The biggest thing is if plans change and they don't go to college, then the gain, any growth in that account comes out as ordinary income. So even if it was growing in a capital gain asset, like you've got growth mutual funds in there that would typically have capital gains, coming out of the 529, it's ordinary income, and you have a 10% penalty. Now, that's a good news, bad news thing. What if your child gets a full ride to Auburn University or University of Alabama or Harvard, or frankly, UT, whatever? Okay, I'd rather pay the tax and a 10% penalty than have to pay for 4 years of college. So that's not too bad. But now, it can be used for K through 12 tuition up to $10,000 a year, that kind of stuff. So they are more flexible than they used to be. But you really want to have an idea that they're going to be going to college if you put money in a 529. And that brings us to Trump accounts. Brand new, offering out there as part of the 250th anniversary of the United States. Trump accounts are tax-deferred investment accounts for children under 18 if they were born last year, and I think over this next 3 years plus last year, the government, if you fill out the correct form 4547, you get that $1,000 contribution from the government. You or anybody can add up to $5,000 annually. And it has to be invested, at least, that language is a little bit fuzzy, but it says it's got to be invested in S&P 500 or similar index funds. The key thing is they want it to be U.S. companies is the main deal there, not foreign companies. And withdrawals before age 18 are restricted. Well, it's interesting. We now have some guidance that came out earlier this week. Bank of New York and Robinhood. Paul, if you're listening, please don't swerve off the road in Las Vegas. Bank of New York and Robinhood win the contract for running Trump accounts. Wall Street firms have been vying to score a coveted role in the program. This is coming from Wall Street Journal. So BNY Mellon and Robinhood are the early winners in the Wall Street's race. The bank is partnering with Robinhood Markets. It would appear to primarily for the design and technology and know-how to develop the accounts app and provide customer service and some stuff like that. It does not sound like from this notice that you're opening an account with Robinhood, but the old camel's nose into the tent comes into play, and they certainly are going to be, chomping at the bit to do that. Our task is clear: to provide the next generation of Americans with world-class, intuitive platform to jumpstart their financial future. And so, the Treasury is going to retain control over the operations and so forth, at least for the first year. But they say that within a year, you will be able to roll over the accounts to other financial institutions. So that's still kind of a fluid thing. We'll see how all of that plays out. But you've got kind of, three choices, and it could be that you use all three. Again, that really is a function of planning. What are your goals for your child? What are the resources you have available to help with or not help with? All of those kinds of things.
Hey, this is Paul Winkler. Hope you enjoyed today's edition of the Investor Coaching Show. If you want to learn more about what we do, go to our website, paulwinkler.com. Until next time, I'm Paul Winkler, reminding you that I believe that more educated investors are more confident investors, and confident investors are more successful investors. Have a great one. Advisory services offered through Paul Winkler, Inc., an SEC-registered investment advisor. The opinions voiced and information provided in this material are for general informational purposes only and not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine what investments are appropriate for you, please consult with a financial advisor. Paul Winkler, Inc. does not provide tax or legal advice. Please consult your tax or legal advisor regarding your particular situation.